The following books, stories, plays, poems, or limericks you will hear on Right Time Radio are the intellectual property of the writers and authors mentioned. Any copying, recording, or reproduction of this work is strictly prohibited without the express written consent of the author. The content of this show is the individual expression of the author and does not necessarily reflect the views of the owner of this radio station.
It's the right time for Right Time Radio. I'm Tom Bruno.
And I'm Lynn Donovan.
Welcome back, listeners, to Right Time Radio every Friday at 10. Hey, here in the studio, we've been just rehearsing for today's broadcast, and we just heard a great rehearsal of the book that we're going to be doing, From Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird by Russell M. Chase.
Yes.
And Lynn's going to intro this. Russell is sitting here next to us, and the narrator today, say hi, Russell.
Hi.
Hi, Russell. Yeah. Hi, Gracie.
And our narrator is James Ellis. Say hi, James.
Hi, James.
Hey.
Good boy.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, our author today, like we said, is Russell M. Chase. And Russell is the author of the Alaska historical fiction. He put my mic on top of my script. Historical fiction novel Out of the Loneliness. As a teenager and young adult, he learned much of what he writes along the trap lines and rivers he traveled by snowshoe, dog teams, and snow machine. It was during those years he wrote multiple articles for the Alaska Magazine, Hunting and Fishing and Hunting News, Voice of the Trapper, and the Alaska Trapper. After moving to Colorado with his wife and 2 boys, Russell earned a degree in criminal justice and worked for the Colorado Department of Corrections for over 22 years. During that time, he was a member of the emergency response team and the escape team, tracking escaped inmates in urban and suburban environments. Russell is now retired and currently hard at work in his newest Alaska historical fiction novel. When not writing, he can be found fly fishing, hunting, and prospecting the Arkansas River in the Rocky Mountains. So it sounds like you can leave Alaska, but Alaska doesn't leave you.
Yeah, that's better.
Well,
we're really happy to have you on the show today, Russell. Thank you for coming.
All right, and I'm going to just read the foreword from the book, From Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird. And the foreword is by a gentleman named Paul L. Thompson. He's a best-selling author himself of the book, The U.S. Marshal, Shorty Thompson Series. So Paul says about this particular book, From Out of the Loneliness, Russell M. Chase has lived what he writes about, having run a trap line in Alaska by dog team. This story represents one of the greatest tales ever told about the Alaskan frontier. Chase is a master storyteller who has the greatest taste in heroes. He's a favorite with readers because he knows Alaska. This book will keep you hooked on the edge of your seat and glued to your Kindle. When I think about the great storytellers of the past, I add Russell M. Chase to that list because his feel for the Alaskan frontier is second to none. So with that, readers, listeners, you can't read through the radio. We'd like to introduce the story From Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird by Russell M. Chase. James, take it away.
From Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird, a novel by Russell M. Chase. Prologue. A light skiff of snow deadened his footsteps as the old sourdough walked his way through the willows toward the gravel bar on the subarctic river. The smell of death from the rotting carcasses of spawned-out salmon mingled with the musty scent of high bush cranberries and wet earth hung in the still evening air. He was meat hunting, looking for moose or caribou, but mostly moose. He most assuredly was not looking for what he found. Stepping out of the willows onto the lower end of the gravel bar, he turned left and continued a few paces until he could see the upper end as well. A large grizzly fed on dead salmon that had floated up on shore. The old sourdough watched as the great bear stood on part of the fish and tore chunks of rotting flesh and entrails away with his teeth. The bear chewed twice, swallowed, looked around, alert for danger or competition. The beast fascinated him, but he pushed his luck and stayed too long. The bear caught his scent and turned to face him. Realizing his mistake, the old sourdough took a step backward and turned, but stopped and watched as the grizzly ambled closer. Turning around, he took 3 more steps and looked back just in time to see the grizzly break into a run. Panic-stricken, the old sourdough ran back through the willows looking for someplace, any place, to make his stand. He could hear the bear right behind him, plowing through the willows, popping his jaws and grunting. Time slowed to a crawl, as it does for most men in desperate situations, and he felt detached from his body, as if he were watching a picture show of himself with the beast in pursuit. He was able to think with the clarity the good Lord has provided for moments of flight or fight. As he thought, so his body did. Just as the bear reached him, the old sourdough jumped to the side, which seemed to take forever. As the slow motion of the bear going past him played out, he heard a loud voice yell, "No!" and watched himself smack the yellow pig eye of the bear with his gun butt. Still in slow motion, the bear stumbled and his momentum carried his 1/4 ton of claw and fang a few feet past the old sourdough. Shouldering his weapon, he waited for the bear to turn. Just as the bear came broadside, the sourdough squeezed the trigger and felt it disengage, felt the recoil of the rifle, and watched the bullet leave the barrel. Fascinated, his eyes followed its vapor trail to the great beast's shoulder. The bear's body shuddered as it absorbed the kinetic energy. The bear completed his turn and came at the old sourdough again. He tried to work the action. It wouldn't budge. Looking down at his rifle, he realized to his horror that it was jammed. The old sourdough looked back in time to see nothing but teeth and tongue and slobbers, blocking his vision. He was on his back now, on the ground, and when or how he got there, he did not know. He smelled the faded fish breath of the bear. He heard crunching and ripping noises in his head. Thinking he was going to die, he surrendered his fate to God's hand. Funny thing was, he was at peace. There was no pain.
This is Right Time Radio on KRLN, and we'll be back with more from this excerpt of Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird, after these commercials.
Did you know that hospice care is not a new concept? The history goes back to at least the 4th century AD. In 1967, Dame Cicely Saunders, who recognized as the founder of the modern hospice movement, opened the first hospice facility, St. Christopher's in England. Dame Cicely believed everyone should find peace in their final days, and Fremont Regional Hospice strives to continue with her vision. If you or someone you know is struggling with a life-limiting illness and can benefit from hospice care, please call 275-4315. Fremont Regional Hospice, your hometown hospice.
This week on the Lutheran Hour, Dr. Michael Ziegler says we each have a part to play on God's stage, with a script, without a tryout, with freedom and responsibility. How will you play your part? Dr. Ziegler and his guest, Dr. Charles Arend, discuss our place in God's creation and our role in caring for it. This week on the Lutheran Hour.
The Lutheran Hour is brought to you by St. John's Lutheran Church in Canyon City. Listen Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. here on 1400 KRLN.
Your KRLN weather calling for a 50% chance of showers and thunderstorms mainly this afternoon. Up till then, we will have sunny skies with highs near 88. That chance of showers and thunderstorms stays with us till about midnight. Then we'll just have cloudy skies with lows in the mid to low 60s.
From the weather station, 79 degrees.
Talk Radio 1400 KRLN.
Are you looking for something but haven't found it? Are you missing something?
We're back to Right Time Radio with the book From Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird. And really excited to hear how this goes. Poor guy just got hit by a grizzly. And, I think this appeals to our audience here because we're in Colorado for a reason. The frontier.
Chapter 1. Dalton Laird and his lead dog, Bandit, hiked along the base of the ridge through the forest. The footing was better than in the snow-covered muskeg tundra closer to the river. As they made their way upriver, the evening light faded and cast the spruce and birch trees into ominous shadows that eerily moved about with the movement of the northern lights dancing overhead. An occasional breeze moaned through the swaying spruce boughs and waved the naked birch limbs like bony fingers. The moon was 3 days past the first quarter. They had hiked about 15 miles as the raven flies from the mouth of the Salcha, and had only 4 more to go before they reached the lower cabin on 98 Creek. Bandit stopped. Her low, throaty wolf growl, born of her wild ancestors, caught his attention. Dalton stopped and looked back at her. Her eyes followed her intense gaze down. On the Oxbow Bend in the river, directly upwind and to their right. Obviously, Bandit had smelled or heard something, or both. Years of experience in the bush taught him to trust her instincts. Her instincts had saved his life and those of other dogs several times. He wondered if an old bear was still out scrounging food for the winter, or perhaps a pack of wolves hunted along the river. Either way, it could be a problem. Dalton eased the lever of his 30-30 down to make sure the chamber held around, then replaced the lever and cocked the hammer. Kneeling down beside Bandit, he whispered, "What is it, girl?" Bandit licked his face and whined. Then he heard it. The breeze carried an eerie moan from somewhere down on the riverbank and up through the forest canopy. Bandit turned her attention back toward the river, lowered her ears, and another low growl escaped her throat. "It almost sounds human," he thought. Another moan wafted up from the shadows, accompanied by an unmistakable call for help. Some chichaco's got himself in a fix. "What's he doing in my neck of the woods anyways?" he said aloud. Dalton thought a bit, then, looking at Bandit, said, "Well, let's go see what he's got himself into. I've got a feeling this is going to change everything." Dalton removed his packboard and stashed it under a spruce tree. Bandit took the lead, and together they made their way downhill, across the spongy muskeg flats, down the riverbank, and into the willows on a gravel bar. Without warning, Bandit stopped. The fur around her neck and down her spine stood on end as another growl rumbled from deep inside her muscular chest. Dalton shouldered his rifle, not quite sure of what to expect. Her behavior raised his suspicions, and he knew it wasn't good. Together, they eased forward and came into a small clearing in the willow thicket. There, in the middle of the clearing, next to a driftwood log, and bathed in the glow of moonlight and northern lights, lay the shivering, bloody form of a man lying on a bed of crimson snow. The mingled scents of grizzly bear and blood lay thick in the cold night air. The form moved and groaned. Dalton surveyed the area looking for the bear. If it was still alive or wounded, it might have bedded down somewhere nearby, guarding its kill. It didn't appear the bear tried to cover the wounded man with sticks and dirt, as bears often do with a kill. More than likely, the bear was gone. Not wanting to take chances, Dalton knew he had to get the man away from the area. Dalton knelt beside the bloody heap of flesh and touched his shoulder. The man jerked, and a bearded face with wild eyes stared back at Dalton. "It's okay, fella. I got you." Who's there?" The man's voice was raspy. His teeth chattered in the cold. Dalton ignored the question. He eased the rifle's hammer down and rested the firearm against a log, then quickly checked the man over, looking for spurting blood, indicating bleeding from an artery. He could see in the dim light that this guy was pretty torn up. About 8 inches of scalp with long, blood-matted hair had turned loose in a crescent from his left eyebrow to the middle of his head. The left eye was swollen shut and blood covered his face. He looked like an older man, Dalton decided, probably in his 60s. "Who's there?" the man repeated. "Name's Dalton Laird. What's yours?" Dalton removed his coat. "Jack," the raspy voice answered. Clearing his throat, he tried again. "Jack Farley. People call me Yukon Jack." Dalton took off his shirt, put his coat back on, and ripped his shirt into strips to use as bandages. Dalton wanted to keep Jack talking, so he asked the next question that came to mind. "How do you feel?" "Like bear poop. I just been ate by a bear. What do you expect?" Dalton gave him a half-crooked smile. "Yeah, I guess that was a dumb question. What I meant to say was, where do you hurt? Can you move your legs?" "Hell, I hurt all over. Don't know about my legs. I just came to a little while ago. I was gonna just give up and go to sleep, never wake up again. Something inside me said I had to holler for help just one more time, so I did." Then he moved his legs a little and said, "Yeah, I can move them. The inside of my right thigh burns like fire." Dalton knew there was a major artery in that area, so he quickly checked, but thankfully found no spurting blood. Turning back to face Jack, he said, "I'm going to start to bandage you up now. I know you can't see much, but you're going to be okay. Your scalp is torn loose. I'm going to start there. Then I'll work on your leg. You lost a lot of blood from the look of things." A faint smile crossed Jack's face. "Well, it ain't all mine, I can tell you that. I put up a good fight, if I do say so my own self." Dalton pushed Yukon Jack's scalp back into place and tied a bandage from under Jack's chin to the top of his head to hold it there. Then, turning his attention back to Jack's leg, he saw that his pant leg was ripped and caked with blood. Dalton could see 2 sets of bite marks where the teeth had punctured the flesh. "He bit you a couple of times there. Looks like he missed the artery, though. Good thing or you would have been dead in a few minutes. You're going to have a pretty good bruise, and probably some infection setting in as well." Dalton carefully wrapped the wound. "Ain't nothing important missing in that general area, is there?" Dalton gave Jack a sideways look. No, I don't think there is. And I ain't going to check." Dalton finished wrapping the wound, then stood, turned directly to him and said, "Listen, I need to get you and us up and out of here into the timber. Think you can make it?" "I'll try. I feel so doggone weak, though." "Well, you're going to have to make it. I don't want to take a chance of that Grizz coming back and finding both of us. I'll help you, even if I have to carry you." Yukon Jack looked up at Dalton. "I believe you could do it to that. You're a big man. Besides, I don't think there's much chance of that Grizz coming back. When he had me pinned down, I knifed him a couple of good ones in the throat. I think I got his jugular. Anyway, I'm sure I heard his death moan in the brush over yonder there somewhere." "Let's hope so. But just to be on the safe side, I've got to get you out of here. Let me help you up." Dalton stood, picked up his rifle, took a step toward Jack's head and shoulders. He reached down with his free hand, grabbed Jack by the collar, lifted him to his feet. Jack stood for a moment, then almost fell. Dalton caught him in time. "Whew! I guess I'm dizzy, something." "Here, put your arm around my neck and lean on me." Dalton took Jack's arm and placed it across his shoulders. "It's going to be tough going up to the timber. Come, Bandit." Bandit moved from the shadows. "Dadgum, that's a fine-looking husky, mister." Dalton looked back at Jack. "Oh, yeah. Just don't do something foolish around her or you'll wish you were back with that grizzly." Bandit took the lead as they slowly made their way through the willows to the riverbank. Crossing the muskeg, they had to stop every 10 yards or so to let Jack rest. At one of these rest stops, Jack complained about his right side hurting, and the pain would almost take his breath away. "Sounds like a cracked rib. It's not too much further to the trees. I have a pack stashed under the spruce up there with a medical kit. When we get there, I'll build a fire, check you over real good. It took about 45 minutes to get back to Dalton's packboard. By then, the clouds moved in, shrouded the moon. White flakes fell in the quiet night, coating the ground with a fresh layer of snow. Dalton unpacked his caribou hide sleeping bag and unrolled it under the spruce bough canopy. The ground was relatively level and dry. He helped Jack lay down on the bag, then quickly got a fire started with birch bark and squaw wood, the dead dry limbs still attached to the tree under the overhanging canopy. There weren't many rocks away from the river, but Dalton found a few and arranged them around the fire to warm up. He dug his tea kettle out of the pack, packed it full of snow, and hung it over the fire. Then came the careful examination of Jack. I found out why your side hurts so much. Looks like he clawed you. Trying to turn you over or something. Got a couple of hunks of skin and some muscle hanging loose. Dalton used the boiling water to carefully bathe and clean out as much debris as he could. Digging through his pack, he found a bottle of iodine and a small bag of salt he always carried and dabbed these into the open wounds under Jack's right arm. Next, he got out some thread and a needle from his sewing kit, soaked the thread in what was left of the iodine. You're a pretty tough old codger. When I first found you, I figured you as a chaco. Dalton began to sew Jack's wounds closed. Well, I sure as heck feel like one now. I'm dizzy and cold. I think I'm going to pass out. Try to hold on till I get your side sewed up, and then we'll get you inside my sleeping bag. And try to hold still. My fingers are getting stiff from the cold. It must be 20 degrees or colder right now. A few more stitches finished the job. With a lot of grunting and groaning on Jack's part, Dalton helped Jack crawl into the bag. Dalton added more wood to the fire and put a fresh pot of snow on the fire. He squatted by the fire and warmed his hands for a few minutes. The deputy sheriff's training from years back bubbled to his brain, and his mind searched for answers. Who is this guy? Where did he come from, and why is he here? Where's his gun? Nobody wanders in the bush without a gun. Dalton shook his head. Oh well, time for that later. Right now, all that matters is saving his life. Dalton looked over at Jack. He had passed out, evidently from the loss of blood, pain, and shock. Jack shivered in his sleep. Dalton fished out some of the warmer rocks from the edge of the fire and packed those inside the bag around Jack to warm him up. A few minutes later, Jack stopped shivering and began to rest peacefully. Dalton figured this was a good time to work on Jack's torn scalp. Dalton added more wood to the fire for light and warmth, and then unwrapped the bandages he had put on earlier. Dalton meticulously washed and picked out all the dirt, sticks, and gravel. Then dabbed what was left of the iodine and some salt into the wound. Jack, still asleep, flinched and mumbled something unintelligible. Dalton pushed the scalp back into place and sewed it together. Jack's soul was so far under. Dalton surmised Jack probably didn't feel a thing. Dalton washed up, put his supplies back in his pack, piled more wood on the fire, plopped down against a tree trunk. He dug through his pants pocket and pulled out a can of Copenhagen. He took a pinch and sighed deeply. He hadn't rested in over 3 hours. Bandit moved up next to him and lay down as close as she could get to her master. Together, they watched the intruder as he rested under the caribou hide sleeping bag. Before long, Dalton's eyes grew heavy.
You're listening to From Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird on Right Time Radio. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for something but haven't found it? Are you missing something in your life but haven't figured out what it is? Does religious tradition come between you and your relationship with God? We invite you to join us in a new personal relationship with the Father and authentic worship of His Son. At Freedom and Faith Ministries, we are real, authentic, everyday people. All we ask is that you be the same. The person you are all week long is the one we want to walk through our doors. We gather at 10:15 on Sundays in the Rec District building at 575 Ash Street in Canyon City, right next to the Riverwalk.
Roll Gorge Radio's AM 1400 KRLN and Star Country 104.5 FM. And we, along with Fremont and Royal Gorge area businesses, proudly present our Customer Appreciation Day we call Money Day.
Hey, y'all, this is Chelsea Lynn inviting you to join me every Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 for your chance to win your share of free money.
That's right, a little cold hard cash could be yours. To win, simply be registered and present at one of these Money Day store locations.
Coyote Coffee Den in the Medical Building location, 1338 Fay Avenue, Building D. Dryden's, appliances, mattresses, and furniture, 1001 Main Street, Canyon City. And the Trading Corner, 700 Shoup Drive, Florence.
So visit a Money Day store location, pick up a registration card, fill it out, and get it back to Royal Gorge Radio. Or go online at royalgorgeradio.com to find out more. Then every Tuesday afternoon at 2:30, be at a Money Day store location. Listen for your name, hear your name, and call 276-0331 within 60 seconds to claim your cash. From Fremont County and Royal Gorge area businesses, AM 1400 KRLN and Star Country 104.5.
This is Dean from Brady's Garden and Spa, your local garden guy for all things garden. Brady's carries everything for garden, including trees, shrubs, perennial flowers, fountains, statuaries, and pond supplies. Brady's also has a large selection of houseplants, fertilizers, pottery, and quality potting soils. Local problems, local solutions. Don't forget, we also carry quality hot tubs from American Whirlpool and a complete line of water care products from Leisure Time. Don't forget to tune in to 1400 Carol N this Thursday at 9 a.m. for the Garden Guy Garden Show with Dean Brady.
Back with Right Time Radio and more from the excerpt of From Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird, written by Russell M. Chase and narrated by James Ellis. Take it away, James.
Dalton awoke, instantly aware of Jack's groaning and mumbling. Dalton moved toward Jack but stopped. He realized Jack was more than likely having a nightmare about the mauling, or something. Dalton leaned back against the tree. That something bothered Dalton. He had a feeling there was more to Jack's story than met the eye. Noticing the fire had died down, Dalton put an armload of wood on the embers. He replaced the rocks in the sleeping bag with fresh, warm ones. Squatting next to Jack, Dalton watched Jack's chest rise and fall for a few moments. It seemed normal enough. It's a good thing it dropped to 20 degrees or so last night, Dalton thought. Else he probably would have bled to death. I'm surprised he didn't die from the cold. He must be a tough old bird. Dalton noticed it was getting light in the southeast. The snow had ceased falling. He looked at his pocket watch. It read 7:25. Bandit, stay, patted her on the head. It'll be light soon, and I'm going down to the river to look things over. You keep an eye on him, you hear? Bandit, of course, heard but didn't understand. All she understood was her name and the word, stay. She knew what that meant. She couldn't follow him. She showed her disappointment by giving him a disgusted look, turned her back to him, and settled down by the fire. Dalton chuckled a bit. It's okay, girl. I'll be back soon. Bandit lay down her head and heaved a deep sigh. Dalton shook his head. Just like a woman. He left her sulking next to the sleeping form of their new acquaintance. Chapter 2. It was late in the evening when Corinne Batiste heard the voices of her father and the recently hired trappers coming from the bar area of the Amita Saloon. She stoked the cast iron stove with wood and placed the Dutch oven full of moose stew she'd made earlier on the top to reheat. Trappers, she said under her breath. Woodsmen, maybe, not trappers. She bet not one of them ever put in a hard day's work trapping requires. They're dingy Nahai-Zoo. Bad people, she said, in her mother's Gowitch and Athabascan tongue. Ward was the worst. He always seemed to be leering at her. Tasting the moose stew, she decided it needed a little more salt. As she reached for the container on the shelf, she heard, Sure looks good. Corinne turned with a start toward the door. Saw Frank Ward leaning against the doorpost, arms folded, grinning at her. He looks like a weasel. What do you want? You know what I want, he said, still grinning. What the boss wants is food on the table for all of us. Tell him it's on its way. I have to make some fresh biscuits because you guys are so late, she said with obvious irritation. Yeah, well, we ran into a little difficulty, but now we're here. Frank's eyes took their time traveling down her body and back up. His smile drew a chill through her spine. She watched as he turned and left the kitchen. Corinne gathered up the silverware and dishes they would need and carried them through the kitchen door. As she placed them around the table where the men sat, she eavesdropped on their conversation. Well, I think we ought to head back out and get as much fur as we can, the one they called Hank said. Corinne saw her father shake his head. None. I've been checking some furs coming into Northern Commercial. They're not prime yet. I want to give them another week. Quantity over quality. Corinne glanced in the direction of the voice. It was the Swede. From what we found in the Salcha is chock full of fur. We stand to make a killing right here. I say get in, get 'em, get out. Corinne glanced at her father as she continued setting the dishes and silverware. She watched a frown cross his face. Like I said, we'll give 'em a week. Then we'll have both quantity and quality to maximize our profits. No? Looking around the table, she noticed Yukon Jack was missing. Where's Jack? She asked timidly. Suddenly, everyone's attention was on her and silence filled the room. A few of the trappers glanced at each other and then averted their eyes. Her father, John Baptiste, said, None of your business, petite filly. Go back to the kitchen and bring us some coffee, and then you can start on those biscuits. Her skin flashed red hot as her blood pressure rose. It always irritated her when her father called her a little girl. He had called her from childhood, growing up in Fort Yukon. However, she was a grown woman now, 20 winters. And the way he said it seemed to convey a sense of superiority over her, like she could never measure up. Like the sense of superiority she felt from most of the white women and many of the Indians as well, just because she was a half-breed. She vaguely remembered him treating her Athabascan mother like that, those many years ago, back before her mother had mysteriously drowned in the Yukon River when Carrie was 10 winters old. The responsibility fell on Carrie to take over her mother's duties then. Cleaning house, cooking, mending, laundering. She didn't know how her mother had managed. Corinne had to grow up fast in those days. Now she had more mouths to feed. Within the past 3 weeks, her father had gathered a bunch of lowlifes around him, both white and Indian, men of questionable honor. She did not feel safe. Yukon Jack was different. He was older. Although she had only known him a few weeks, he was always kind to her. He was of a Nudlit, a white man, but she liked him and trusted him. She sensed in him an honorable man and looked on him as a grandfather. Everybody knew it, even her father. She knew he did not approve of it, and it showed in the way he treated Jack. However, she liked him and he made her laugh, unlike her father, sitting here with a smug look on his face, always calling her a little girl. I'm taller than he is. She leaned in toward his ear. Stop calling me little girl, little Napoleon. 2 or 3 snorts and snickers erupted from the men around the table as John Baptiste's face turned red and a vein pulsated in his neck. Corinne knew she'd crossed the line. She turned and walked back into the kitchen with as much grace and dignity as she could muster, preparing for the sting of wrath to come. The kitchen batwing door slammed open and Corinne turned with a start. John Baptiste, all 5 feet 5 inches of him, stood in the doorway glaring at her, breathing heavily. Corinne briefly imagined little puffs of steam coming from his nostrils. She almost cracked a smile. However, she didn't. She had seen and felt his anger before. Her father walked up to her and landed a slap on her cheek that made a loud smack. Corinne's head violently jerked to her right from the impact.
She raised a hand to her stinging cheek as tears welled up in her eyes and slowly turned her face to him, not saying a word. John glared at her for a moment, then growled. "Don't you ever do that again in front of my men, petite filly. By heaven, I'll take a strap to you, I will. You're getting more headstrong like your mother every day, and I don't like it. And if you don't change your attitude, no man will want you, and you may end up just like her. Now, I'm doing the best I can to provide for the both of us, and I don't need your insolence undermining my authority in front of my men." "Where's Jack? Did something happen to him?" Her own voice sounded weak to her ears. "Watch yourself, mon petite filly. That's none of your business. Let's just say he doesn't work for me anymore and he's not coming back. Now, I'll take the coffee out and you start on those biscuits." John Baptiste turned, picked up a pot holder, then the pot of coffee, walked out of the kitchen. Corinne watched him leave as rage replaced the tears. "I hate that man. I hate this place and the company he keeps." Corinne got the sourdough pot from the shelf by the stove. Flour, sugar, salt, rendered bear fat, and baking soda. As she mixed the ingredients, her mind began to wonder. Jack doesn't work for him anymore? What does that mean? Did he quit? Did Papa fire him? Perhaps something happened to him. The one person she could call a friend was gone. Her left cheek felt feverish, like her little brother had felt all over when he had died from the white man's flu. He was only 3 winters old. She was 6. That was long ago. Why think of him now? And what did Papa mean by, "I may end up like her"? Did my mother stand up to him just like I did? She wondered. Or was she so despondent and downtrodden that she took her own life in the Yukon? Corinne had always wondered about that, even as a little girl. No, she would never do something like that. The one thing Corinne remembered the most about her mother, that she was a strong woman. She had to be to put up with the likes of him. So, if he thought she was like her mother, well then, she should take that as a compliment. As the biscuits baked, she replenished what she had taken out of the sourdough pot with equal parts of flour and water and a little sugar. She had learned long ago the importance of keeping the sourdough pot full and bubbling. Again, she heard the kitchen door open. Her eyes followed the sound. Frank Ward and his grin walked in. A thought flashed through her mind. Maybe I can get some information out of him. "Now what?" she asked. She looked back down at her work. "The boss told me to check on the biscuits." She looked him in the face. She knew that her cheek was still red and that her eyes were probably puffy from the crying. "Give him 5 more minutes." Frank Ward's grin disappeared. "Are you all right?" "No, I'm not all right, but I can handle it." She watched his jaws tighten. "Now I have him where I want him." "Ward?" "Yes?" "Where's Jack?" Ward took a deep breath, looked down to the floor, and said, "I know how much you liked him. The only time I saw you smile was when he was around, so it pains me to tell you this. A grizzly mauled Jack. He's dead." Again, tears welled up in her eyes, this time tears of sorrow and grief. "Don't tell the boss I told you, you hear? Or we'll both be in trouble." Ward turned to leave the kitchen. Corinne forced herself to stop crying as she reached for a clean rag. Finding one, she rinsed it in cold water and held it to her face. The heat from the oven and the heat from the slap slowly faded away. She dried her face, checked the biscuits, found they were done. Corinne carried the big Dutch oven full of stew out to the table and placed it in the middle. When she returned with the biscuits, half the stew was gone and the only sounds were the tapping of spoons on metal bowls, slurping and grunts of contentment. She returned to the kitchen and sat down, dog-tired. "I need to get out of here." But where would she go? She had no family, no friends either, for that matter. Her last relative was her mother's father, Black Wolf, one of the elders in Fort Yukon. He died 2 winters ago. No, she decided. I'll have to figure something else out.
Oh, man, that's our cliffhanger. That is so good. We will be back after these messages, and we're going to talk to the author, and we'll also talk to our narrator. So don't go away.
Is a different kind of financial institution. We're locally owned by members like you. And as Colorado's leading credit union, we're committed to helping you improve your financial life. Not just by offering great banking products and services, but by giving you more value in the form of better rates, lower fees, and Ent Extras cash rewards. Because at Ent, we're here to help you make the most of what you've got. That's our commitment. And it's an Ent thing. Learn more about the Ent difference at ent.com/difference. Ent Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA.
Skyline Ridge Nursing and Rehabilitation never underestimates the power of a good laugh. They take their responsibilities of caring for your loved ones seriously. But they also know how important fun and laughter can be to keeping spirits and strength up. Skyline's recreational programs are designed to develop friendships and create social and entertaining situations. Spiritual, emotional, intellectual, and physical activities are offered to meet the unique needs of their residents. At Skyline Ridge, they put people first.
What are you going to do while you're here in Fremont County? There's so much to choose from. How about playing a round of Frisbee golf at our accredited community college? Try a great restaurant. So many to choose from, like French, Chinese, Mexican, Italian, Thai, Japanese, Indian, and, of course, all American. Or how about an art walk to view some of our world-class artists on First Friday in Canyon City or Second Saturday in Florence? There's something for everyone.
Sunny, but not quite as warm today. A high temperature up to 88 in Canyon City with a 50% chance of showers. Those mainly coming after 2 p.m. The chance of showers continuing tonight until 11 p.m. Our low temperature dipping down to 62 degrees. And on Saturday, a 60% chance of rain with tomorrow's high near 89.
From the weather station, 79 degrees.
Radio 1400.
Welcome back to Right Time Radio. You've just heard From Out of the Loneliness, The Adventures of Dalton Laird, read by James Ellis, and then I've got the author here next to me, Russell Chase. Russell, how in the world did you learn so much about the Alaskan frontier? I mean, this has been a fascinating story.
Well, I lived up there for 18, 19 years.
Starting when?
Well, we moved up in 72 with a missionary and do some missionary work up there.
Huh.
And I was like 15 years old at the time, so
man, what a great time!
Grand adventure for a teenager, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we lived about 20 miles out of town, northeast of Fairbanks, about 25-mile little place called Two Rivers.
And was there any housing up there, or did you camp?
At that time, there was like 4 or 5 other families that lived in the area. It was just a dirt road. They went to Chino Hot Springs, which is another like 40 miles past that. But anyway, we moved into that area. It's kind of like we felt like this is where we're supposed to be, so we bought 10
What year
acres.
was that?
It was 72.
Yeah. Has it changed a lot? I mean, I think so.
Yeah, since then, I moved back in 90, back to Canyon. And since then, there's been there's like 2 gas stations there now, and a little restaurant, and there's subdivisions. Not a traffic light yet, but
no
there's
traffic
quite a lot of people that moved into that area, and the community has grown quite a bit since then.
Huh. Yeah, there's a yearning in the man's heart and maybe a woman's heart. What do you think, Lynn?
I think so.
Okay. To explore the frontier and to be out there on the frontier, and you got to actually live it.
Yeah, it was something I wouldn't trade for anything.
Yeah, I would think. And we see, we go hiking, but that's nothing compared to out there on the edge of civilization. So did you ever do anything like that you have in here in the story?
Yeah, I ran a trap line every winter.
Trap line, what were you trapping?
Well, some muskrats, the mink, fox, wolverine, wolf, lynx, marten. Marten was kind of the bread and butter crop. That's what everybody wanted.
I'm not even sure what a marten is. I bet most of our listeners.
You ever heard of sable?
Yeah,
that's another word for sable.
Okay. And and then there was a market for those. Somebody bought your trappings.
Yeah, back then in the late 70s, early 80s, there was quite a good market for fur.
The fur?
Yeah.
Do you eat the meat as well?
No. Some people do. A lot of people up there in Alaska eat lynx, the cat, but they like it. They say it's really good. I've never really tried it. I eat a lot of beaver meat and muskrats.
Okay.
The other stuff like marten and mink they're a weasel family. Remember the weasel family, so they're really musky and they're not really good eating.
Right.
But they do use them for their dog food a lot, for the dog teams and stuff. The whole animal usually gets used
somehow.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to give the listeners a feel for how life was like. You actually used dog sleds, is that right?
Yeah, in fact, I've got one.
I'm guessing.
I'll be taking it with me tonight when I'm in town, but dog sleds.
I'll bring my 5 dachshunds. We'll hook them up.
There you go. We'll run up and down Main Street.
Yeah.
That would be funny. So speaking of tonight, let's talk about this book. I think people are like, well, what happened? You left us hanging a little bit. So where can they get the book?
Well, first off, it's on Amazon. They can look up my name on Amazon, Russell M. Chase.
And don't buy it yet. Hang on.
And there can also, tonight I'll be at Kaleidoscope Inspirations at 5 o'clock for a book signing.
And that's at 602 West Main Street.
602, yes.
Or is it West Main or just Main?
No, it's just Main.
602. I get the Wests and these.
6th and Main, basically.
6th and Main.
And
okay.
I also have books at Cheryl's Book Nook and at REM Art Gallery with Mary Shell's place.
All right. Yeah. REM's a great little place.
And how much do you sell them for?
The one you just read from is $9.95. The second book in that series is $7.95.
What's the name of that one?
The second.
Under the Midnight Sun.
Nice.
So also, and it is a continuation, I understand?
Yeah, it's like 2 years later after this book.
If you do look him up on Amazon, we want to let you know that his last name is spelled C-H-A-C-E. So you're going to be doing the search. So you'll have to put that extra C in there if you need it for your Kindle. But if you want to get his signature, you can go to the Kaleidoscope tonight at 5.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's nothing like an autographed book signed by the author that you just met.
Amen.
And where do you have a Facebook page or anything?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page. It's at Russell M. Chase.
Is it Russell M or RM?
Russell
M. Chase. Okay. Yeah. And that again is C-H-A-C-E. So don't be goose chasing.
Yeah, we'll be we will friend them with our Facebook, Right Time Radio on Facebook, and so that way help get you linked in with them too. So, and remember, if you came in late or you've got family out of town that you'd like to hear this as well, go to our website at Right Time Radio, WRITE, Time Radio. .my-free.website and click on the tab previous broadcast. You'll be able to hear today's and previous broadcasts as well.
And Russell, we're hoping that you're going to submit some other stuff in the near future.
Sure.
That would be really nice. And other listeners out there, you know that this is a locally produced here at KRLN Studios. Carrie is glaring at me right now. Oh, no, that's not a glare. That's a smile. Okay. And Carrie's the manager of KRLN and KSTY. But KRLN 1400 hosts us, so that's local. And we've got local authors, as this guy Russell next to me, he lives about 3 blocks away, he says. And then, of course, produced by local voice talent, we've got James Ellis right here who lives in Florence, right?
That's right.
We're going to be talking to him. But what we're trying to say is, contact us, righttimeradio@gmail.com. If you've got something you'd like to be produced, we'll take a look at it and see if it's appropriate.
Let's talk to James. James, I know that you're involved in something that is kind of occupying your time in the evenings. Tell us about that.
Yes, the show of shows for Halloween.
Yes.
Dracula.
All right. And that's with which theater?
That's going to be at the Historic Rialto Theater in
Very
Florence.
cool. All right. And what part are you playing?
I get to be Renfield.
That's crazy.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
So just tell us a little bit about Renfield.
Well, Renfield is Dracula's right-hand henchman.
Okay.
Helps cause all the trouble.
He's the yes master.
Yes.
And when's that going to be, James?
Okay, that is going to play on the 18th, 19th, and 20th of October. Also, the following weekend, the 25th, 26th, and 27th of October.
Awesome.
I heard there's something wild happening on the 18th.
Yes, on the opening night of the 18th, Florence Brewing Company will be serving up bloody beers.
All right.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's tomato juice and beer, so actually it might not be so bad.
It's not real blood?
No, it's not real blood. That sounds great. Well, that is so much fun, and I know you have been in theater for a long time, and we really appreciate you being narrator because you did an awesome job today.
Thank you. Thank you. I got into theater back in high school, and it was what kept me in high school, kept me in school, period. And
there you go.
It's a good thing. And, you know, the opportunities in theater are great. You can be in anything. You can be an actor. You can run the lights. You can do makeup. You can build a set.
Yeah.
I mean,
Costumes.
Costumes, you name it. I mean, it's all there. It's a lot of fun. Good way to be a part of the community.
Yes.
And the arts are
And
very
express your
important.
creativity. So, yeah.
And meet some great people like James.
That is fun. That is fun.
Meet people like me.
Characters.
Characters like you, yeah.
All right.
Well, listen, I want to let our listeners know that I want to make sure you tune in next Friday because we have got David Lynn Spencer that's going to be back, and she is going to be reading an excerpt of her newly released book that's called Mail Order Misfire. So I cannot wait to hear that. Yeah, and she's going to read it herself because she's a brave woman.
Yeah, she's another local author, obviously. And Russell here, I didn't realize that everybody seems to know each other.
Yeah,
Russell,
knows.
you know who she is, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and at the Kaleidoscope, Sandra Miller Linhart's going to be there with him tonight too. So that's
she'll be working
a
with
gal
Sandra
we've
book, too.
we've had her on the show as well, and we're going to have her back on the show in November with our veterans dedication to the month. She's going to be reading Daddy's Shoes.
Daddy's shoes or boots?
Daddy's boots. You're
Okay.
right. Daddy's boots.
Yeah. I
Shoes,
was paying
boots,
attention
something.
last
You were.
And our military, we wear boots. My wife wears combat boots,
Your
by
wife
the way.
does wear combat boots.
All right. And, hey, on October 1st, we're launching your hosts, me, Tom Bruno, and Lynn Donovan, and 3 other authors from around the country are launching a series, Beyond the Veil, and we read from that. Was that last week?
That was last week.
Man, it seems like months ago, but we'll have a little, near the end of September, we'll have a little bit more from that. And that's called Beyond the Veil, and it's a sci-fi fantasy romance. Really emphasis on the romance. Every book has got some lovesick person. No?
Connecting with another lovesick person. No, it's
right.
Parents
it's a good
and
story.
teachers want to get this out there too. If you have a child that needs some requirements fulfilled for finishing up school, we'd love to have them on as well. They're writing.
Yes,
so this is the start of the school year, and let's get them involved as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to talk. Hey, Florence High School. Last year we had lots of episodes from Canyon. So let's wrap it up. Thanks for listening to Right Time Radio.
All right, thanks for being with us today. Join us next week, 10 to 11 on 1400 KRLN.
The finest ingredients and the freshest salads. And the best pizza in town. Pizza Madness, 509 Main Street. This is AM 1400 KRLN, Canyon City.